And so we think a lot these days about circles of trust as something of a model of the kind of community that needs to be out there for citizens to recover their capacity to approach our common life in this country with decency, with openness, with generosity, and with a lack of fear, which again is the root problem that courage to teach, courage to lead, courage to serve is trying to address, the fear that so often paralyzes us and shuts us down. And of course, in our society these days, nationally and globally, the fear in a very sharp and paralyzing way is a fear of the other, whoever that may be, the person of another color, the person of another religion, the person of another ethnicity. If we are going to recover the citizenly habits that make a democracy work, we need to have this country dotted through our churches and synagogues and mosques, through our schools, even in our workplaces, all kinds of institutional settings. We need to have this country dotted with circles of people who are learning to talk to one another in a creative way about common problems on which they have quite different opinions. I remember some years ago visiting a place in Tennessee called the Highlander Folk Center. I think it's now called the Highlander Research Center. And the Highlander Research Center, when I visited it, was essentially a farmhouse with some other buildings out in the middle of the Tennessee countryside. And in the living room, the big old living room of this big old farmhouse, there were about 20 Tennessee rocking chairs in a circle. And I was powerfully reminded that it was in that circle, at that place, that people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks and Fannie Lou Hamer and lots of others whose names we don't know that well, gathered together in the 50s, whites and blacks in the same circle, together across racial lines for the first time in that era of Southern life, talking about what it was like to be a black person and to be a white person in a highly segregated society, and the price that everybody was paying for that. And that out of telling those stories and out of the mutual understanding that emerged, and then out of some very specific training in nonviolence, which made those circles different from circles of trust as we hold them. But out of that sitting in circle, telling stories, sharing of lives, touching the soul, rejoining it with the citizenly role, came a civil rights movement, which was one of the great acts of citizenship of the 20th century. A history like that, and the fact that so much has happened out of these small circles of people learning to tell each other the truth in a generous and hospitable way, neither giving nor taking offense. A story like that reminds me of the power of circles of trust to restore the soul of the citizen and in turn to help restore the soul of democracy.